Today, we continue to share with you the Mula Madhyamaka Karika authored by Nagarjuna. The Mula Madhyamaka Karika is an extremely important treatise in our Buddhism. I don't think I need to explain it to you. Those of you with wisdom will understand once you have read it. Because in this day and age, many people are interested in Tibetan Buddhism. But to be honest, some have not specifically studied or learned the true teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, nor have they practiced the faith. So, I think for many of us, if you are truly interested in this area, it is best to set aside some time to look into it and learn about it yourself. Any knowledge in this world cannot necessarily be attained unless you put in the effort. Therefore, I see more and more people now, whether Easterners or Westerners, especially the younger generation, paying particular attention to Buddhism, and especially Tibetan Buddhism, which everyone has been very concerned about in recent years. What is the education of Tibetan Buddhism like? It is best to understand it from two aspects, the Sutrayana and the Tantrayana. Especially within the Sutrayana, as we discussed earlier when talking about the Diamond Sutra, the most profound teaching of Buddhism, and the most accessible to everyone, is the emptiness of prajna. This emptiness can even be accepted by scientists, because when observed through reason, the emptiness taught herein is indeed very consistent with modern logical deduction. And for those of us in the world who are believers with sincere faith in Buddhism, they can also fully accept it. So, if you are interested in this, I think it is best for you to understand it thoroughly. And this understanding comes in two forms. One is theoretical, and the other is through practice. The theoretical approach is like that of many scholars and researchers today, using various methods to compare and analyze. In Buddhist terms, this is perhaps a conceptual understanding, rather than the direct perception of the essence through valid cognition. If we thoroughly understand or practice with faith, we can personally perceive it through either indirect cognition or direct experience. What are indirect cognition and direct experience? That is to say, if we learn through theory, someone tells us what water is and how it is composed, we might understand it completely. Just like when we take a chemistry class or some theoretical course, and the teacher explains what elements water is made of, we certainly understand it then. But if you have never actually drunk water, you will only truly understand what water is really like once you have tasted it yourself. Practicing the Dharma is the same. Theoretical study allows us to grasp parts of it, understanding the conceptual logic, but only through diligent practice can we personally savor its profound essence, which I believe is something attainable. Therefore, here today, we will spend this short 3-day period discussing the Mula Madhyamaka Karika. Of course, it is impossible to fully introduce Nagarjuna Bodhisattva's philosophy in such a short time, as 3 lessons are certainly not enough. But I am speaking now because time is not like it used to be. Things are becoming increasingly busy and difficult to manage. I am still trying my best to promote the Dharma and translation work, but I have been unable to find the time. Many of you listening to this lecture today are likely very busy as well, so for the time being, none of us have a long stretch of time to dedicate to study. I hope that will be possible in the future. I hadn't looked at this text for many years, but upon reading it recently, I realized that our current society is in great need of the Mula Madhyamaka Karika. Because I took the time to review it beforehand, I felt that it is even more important now. In fact, I first encountered this Mula Madhyamaka Karika a long time ago, back in the 1980s when I had just arrived at the Buddhist Academy, and I felt great joy after reading it. Later, I seem to have asked some of our Han Khenpos today, and they said that it might have been mentioned in our Kengyer today. Back in 2004, some of the monastics and laypeople at the Academy went through it once, using a different version at that time. And then, I believe it was around 2007, 10 years later, that we received the transmission of the text from Kenshin Rinpoche at the Academy. That was the version we originally translated. Yesterday I was at our hospital where we did the translation. Some of the people who cared for me when I was sick back then came today, and it was good to see that they are in relatively good health. Looking at 2007, it has been 4 years since then, right? Wait, it was 2005, so it must be 12 years now. Time really passes by very quickly. So, this time, I will transmit it to you for the third time, and this will be a simpler way of giving you the vows. Some of you might not understand when I am transmitting it, and you may wonder why I am just reciting without explaining, but at this moment, if you really don't understand, just think of it as a monastic reciting verses for you as this new session begins. Because sometimes we usually invite masters to give blessings at home, you should just think, if I listen to this, at the very least it won't do me any harm, so I will just listen to the whole thing. Since you might not understand the reason for the oral transmission, you should know that many of our past masters have preserved this lineage. You all know the lineage of the 8 verses of training the mind. It went from Kam to Lhasa. In some historical accounts, it was a transmission of a single verse, the 8 verses of training the mind, which only has 8 phrases. It turned out that by the time those 2 people reached Lhasa, the master had already passed away. That is why in ancient times, there was such a special emphasis on lineage and its trends. Whether it is Chinese Buddhism or Tibetan Buddhism, whether you can truly attain the Dharma is actually deeply connected to this lineage. For example, if I receive this teaching, it means I have truly obtained this Dharma. This is what is considered a genuine lineage. Of course, if the other party does not have the lineage, then there is nothing you can do. It's like in a certain Western country, there is a saying that goes, "Wow, this empowerment is extremely, extremely precious and generally unobtainable. I have never received it myself, but today, I will bestow it upon you. This empowerment is extremely, extremely precious. I have never received it myself, but because I find you all to be so exceptional this time, I will still give it to you." Quote, "If I haven't received the empowerment myself, I cannot bestow it upon you. If I haven't received the lineage myself, I simply cannot transmit it to you. But back when I was young, even if I looked at things myself, now, you see, sometimes when looking at certain scriptures, I can't even see them clearly anymore." This goes to show that a person's lifespan, even if you don't have any major illnesses, is something age does not wait for. That is why I am no longer like I was 30, 20, or even 10 years ago, planning for many years into the future. Even if our power of faith has not diminished, when we reach a certain point, the reality of age catches up to everyone. A while ago, someone said they really wanted to be successful, and success is indeed necessary. But when we observe life with true wisdom, you look at your 20s and 30s as you progress, and by the time your wisdom and experience are truly abundant and everything is quite good, you have already reached the age of 50 or 60. Although your aspirations and experience in life are at their peak, at that moment, your body and other aspects are no longer what they used to be, they start to decline. So, this life is merely a fleeting performance. Therefore, many of us who are enlightened understand what this cycle of rebirth is like, so the truths taught in Buddhism offer a very rational and objective analysis of life. So today, as I speak on this Bodhicariyavatara, since we are going to chant the transmission of the third and fourth chapters, the Wisdom chapter, as I mentioned yesterday, we are preparing to transmit the final chapter. The final chapter is about monasticism. When I first taught this, I placed great importance on it and insisted that everyone should become a monk. But now, I dare not say that, because if everyone wants to become a monk, the number of monastics will grow, and the pressure on society will increase. Then, there would be no one to raise children, and no one to care for the elderly. So, whether becoming a monk is ultimately good or bad is hard to say. Now, when some people ask if they can shave their heads, I say, let's wait and see, think about it carefully first. Once I say that, a month later, they often don't want to become monks anymore. So, tomorrow when we reach the chapter on monasticism, I might not be as eager to push for it. Originally, one should be very enthusiastic when teaching the chapter on monasticism to build the community, which is highly emphasized in the teachings, but in a practical sense, we must also care about society. On one hand, the merit of becoming a monk is indeed immense, but on the other hand, there are the practical life issues we face today. We will see when the time comes. I don't know how much I will elaborate tomorrow. So today, we should begin chanting from the second chapter. I will lead the chanting, and in between, just like yesterday, I will pause at the verses that I find particularly important or meaningful. Actually, all of it is important, but if I were to explain everything, I would keep you from resting all night, which might not be good in the end. So, I will just briefly explain the more significant passages as I did yesterday when I come across them. And for the most part, I will simply provide the transmission. Well, the second chapter is about accumulating merit, and the third chapter is about accumulating wisdom. Actually, when Nagarjuna Bodhisattva was traveling to Vidarbha to spread the Dharma, he encountered someone on the road. When he met him, Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, who was skilled in physiognomy, saw that he had the features of a king, so he told the locals that he would become a king in the future. Later, when Nagarjuna Bodhisattva returned after many years of teaching abroad, the man had indeed become a king. Once he was king, King Udayana invited Nagarjuna Bodhisattva to the palace to teach the Dharma for a long time. After Nagarjuna Bodhisattva left, he sent 2 letters to King Udayana. One was the precious garland, and the other was the letter to a friend. He sent them in the form of letters back then, since there were no emails or anything of the sort for King Udayana at the time. Nagarjuna Bodhisattva sent them by mail, physically mailing them out. At the time, they may have just looked like letters, but in reality, all practitioners hold them in very high regard. From this, we can see what the true teachings of Buddhism are, and what the perspective on worldly and transcendental matters is. Many people today believe that Buddhism is quite passive, just focusing on eliminating greed, hatred, and ignorance, and that those who practice it are merely isolating themselves in the mountains, which is disadvantageous to our society and its development. Actually, these views can be said to stem from a lack of understanding of Buddhism. Buddhism offers profound and tranquil meditative practices, but it also provides approaches well suited to the environment we live in today. By fully integrating this wisdom, we can confidently face the complex and diverse issues of modern life. I believe powerful educational methods for doing so are entirely attainable within Buddhism. This is not merely Buddhists praising their own tradition. If everyone present uses their own mature, keen, and analytical wisdom to observe, it becomes crystal clear that the great masters from over 1 or 2 millennia ago truly understood the human condition with such incredible precision. Therefore, I think people in society today, even if we have enough to eat and wear, often suffer from heavy burdens and immense pressure. Whether successful or not, many people are not truly happy, they are troubled. The wealthy have the sufferings of the wealthy, and the poor have the sufferings of the poor. Everyone, in their own position, often faces various anxieties and distress. At such a time, we possess a spiritual panacea, a nectar of wisdom. If we happily apply this nectar to our own beings, our lives can be transformed into a state of great joy. Ultimately, whether we are facing any problem in reality, or even those beyond the mundane world, those transcending our natural environment and our deep-seated human issues, they can all be resolved with ease. So, I feel we are in great need of this. Personally, I am very objective. I am not speaking from a place of religious sentiment or bias, but rather from a position of impartial wisdom. When we observe clearly, it becomes evident that many people in today's society truly need this wisdom found in the Buddha's teachings. With this kind of wisdom, we avoid making various mistakes in the future, and it is very helpful when facing the various confusions in life. There is certainly a lot to say about this aspect. I am starting to recite the biography now. In it, there is mention of the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom. As for the accumulation of merit, as we all know, it includes things like chanting, releasing captive animals, and performing charitable acts. Many such virtuous deeds are called the accumulation of merit. As for the accumulation of wisdom, it refers to the wisdom of meditative concentration. Regarding the accumulation of wisdom, any behavior that contributes to the growth of wisdom can be categorized under this accumulation. The Buddha's form body and truth body correspond respectively to the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom. The father of the two accumulations, the form body, is created by merit. That is, the Buddha's physical body arises from the accumulation of merit. Then there is the truth body, which is produced by wisdom. Therefore, regarding the truth body, it is actually produced through the accumulation of wisdom. The two accumulations are the reason why bodhisattvas are described as possessing both merit and wisdom. Ultimately, we must always maintain both the accumulation of merit and the accumulation of wisdom. As Buddhists, we must value these two, as they are like our eyes or our two wings, absolutely indispensable. The common situation among Buddhists today, as I mentioned yesterday, is that some people place great importance on the accumulation of wisdom, such as practicing meditation and contemplating emptiness, focusing entirely on it. However, they look down upon the accumulation of merit completely, doing no virtuous deeds at all. Aside from some meditation, they have no interest in the aspect of merit. There is another group of people who, perhaps like those in our temples, offer lamps and do many good deeds, accumulating a lot of merit, but they basically lack understanding regarding emptiness, bodhicitta, and wisdom. If this is the case, then achieving the two accumulations, merit and wisdom, in Buddhism is simply impossible to perfect. Therefore, regarding our virtuous deeds, some might be quite difficult. It is also not right to spend all day solely on virtuous acts, doing nothing but turning prayer wheels or the like. Although these are virtuous methods, what is even more important is to realize emptiness and to grasp the ultimate philosophy of the middle way. Some people strictly pursue teachings like the Great Perfection, demanding these while completely abandoning practices like chanting mantras, saying they are unnecessary. They speak only of seeing one's nature, the unchanging state, and luminosity and emptiness, using such high-sounding terminology that we hardly dare to approach them. Indeed, some of our fellow Buddhists seem to have such lofty realizations that it feels as though we have to look way up just to see them. Whether this is truly the case, however, is hard to say. Therefore, concerning the two accumulations of merit and wisdom, my lineage teachings emphasize both equally. You can see that our tradition and our masters place great importance on these two aspects. So, whether we are guiding other sentient beings or practicing ourselves, we should not abandon either one. Only then can your practice be considered relatively complete. Otherwise, some of us meditate every day, but it is hard to say how high or deep your meditative state really is, and it is uncertain whether you have truly grasped anything at all. If not, you might spend your whole life meditating, but if you have not even accumulated the basic merit for a fortunate rebirth in the human or heavenly realms, then this human life of yours has been lived in vain. Thus, if we spend our entire lives only doing minor virtuous deeds, but never take interest in the wisdom of emptiness, which can truly destroy our ego clinging, then that is a great pity. In that case, when you depart, you might be reborn in a favorable realm, but upon obtaining a human life, you may not have accumulated any merit or wisdom. Therefore, as Buddhists, everyone should attach importance to these two major issues. Second, perhaps it can be done. Once we have this bodhicitta in our minds, whether you are in a state of distraction, sleep, or any other scattered state, this bodhicitta is always present. Some people think that the Mahayana Bodhisattva path is extremely difficult, requiring one to generate intentions over such a long time and save so many beings, feeling that they truly cannot do it. In fact, if you study the Mahayana Sutralamkara or our Madhyamaka treatises, you don't need to worry about this kind of thinking. What is the reason for this? Because we vow to help infinite beings accumulate infinite virtues, and by making these boundless vows, we have engaged in such wholesome practices. For this reason, in a very short time, one can accumulate immeasurable merit and bring one's roots of virtue to perfection. Therefore, sometimes when we hear certain Buddhist teachings, people may initially feel a sense of fear, thinking, "Wow, I might not be able to do this," especially in Mahayana Buddhism, with practices like giving away one's own flesh or blood, or following so many precepts, it seems very, very difficult. If our practice is truly authentic, we can accumulate immeasurable merit in a short time, and thus, whether for the benefit of others or our own attainment, there is great hope. We can often see this in our own practitioners. Someone who was once very ordinary, after generating bodhicitta and practicing with dedication, can truly achieve much in their short life. Take, for example, that, not the one you're thinking of, but the one, what is he called? That person who used to be a layperson carrying a lot of grain, what do you call him? Oh, the layman, yes, the layman. You see, you are still quite remarkable. Actually, it is just like the story of Bengongja. Before he became a monk, he was, to use modern terms, a gang leader, but he later transformed into an extraordinary practitioner. And so, he was able to guide and liberate countless sentient beings. Among us, there are also some who once did everything wrong, but after receiving the teachings, they have helped countless people. Even within our current community of listeners, some may have created a lot of negative karma in the past, while others may not have, but neither had benefited many beings. Yet now, because they have bodhicitta in their hearts, they truly have benefited many sentient beings. Therefore, my own perspective is that our lives are most meaningful when we are able to benefit others. Benefiting others does not necessarily mean placing all beings in some transcendent state. It's not always like that. Even if it is just alleviating the temporary suffering of someone right next to us, that is a form of compassion. For instance, relieving the physical pain of a patient or helping someone who is suffering, these are also very, very meaningful things to do. So, recently, when our foundation members and fellow practitioners have been involved in social welfare work, I have felt that since we don't know how many years we have left in our lives, if we use our remaining years for these efforts, then claiming to study the Mahayana teachings while actually doing nothing would be empty and meaningless. If I can truly help even just one or two people, then that is the most meaningful part of my life. You might remember this from some of my previous books. There was a child by the shore picking up fish that were being scorched by the sun. Someone told him, "You can't possibly save all of them. Why bother?" The child said nothing, but continued to throw them back into the water, one by one, because to that one fish, it mattered a great deal. There are many suffering people before our eyes, and while we cannot help everyone, we can at least help one person. Or two people. Whether in this life or the next, this is the true conduct of a bodhisattva. So recently, I have been especially grateful to all those participating in our charitable works, using their own various strengths to help. Of course, our kind of help should be long-term. Human resolve is often very fragile, present today and gone tomorrow, so we should set goals for ourselves for at least 10 or 20 years. We shouldn't set the bar too high at the beginning, but we must maintain our resolve and keep it long-term. By setting a slightly distant goal, even if you don't fully succeed, you still have a direction. I believe that those of us doing good deeds should each have a goal and a sense of purpose for ourselves, and this is what are the three poisons of greed, hatred, and ignorance, and how can we eliminate them? In our scriptures, it is mentioned that we must understand these greed, hatred, and ignorance, which are known as the root afflictions. Once we are aware of them, we must do our best. Try every method to root out this greed, hatred, and ignorance, so that without greed, hatred, or ignorance, we may understand the merit in this. Therefore, in our daily lives, we should try our best to be free from these greed, hatred, and ignorance. People in the world today are all very eager for happiness, but we often create much karma driven by this greed, hatred, and ignorance. Of course, as worldly people, it is impossible to have no greed, hatred, or ignorance at all, but Buddhism asks us not to let it be excessive. As laypeople, we should maintain a reasonable approach toward people and wealth in our daily lives. If it becomes excessive, such as the insatiable greed we see now, which goes beyond your scope, or ignorance leading to foolish behavior, then it will bring you harm. The same applies to hatred. Many people today hold on to hatred, which brings no peace to themselves, others, their families, or society. It is all caused by their own resentment. So, what are these things called? They are called the causes of suffering. Therefore, as true practitioners, we see that although sentient beings naturally wish to end suffering, ordinary beings ironically cherish the causes of suffering. Sometimes, in our ignorance, we end up creating countless causes of greed, hatred, and delusion, and as a result, we bring this very suffering upon ourselves. Therefore, we must use our own wisdom to observe how we should or should not act in life, what true happiness and suffering are, and what their origins really are. When we use our wisdom to observe these aspects, it should be said that in this world, If one has the ability, it is best to build things like stupas and Buddha statues. If you have greater capabilities, many people now build Buddhist temples, practice centers, and schools, which is also very important. If you lack such capabilities, you can build small practice centers or statues. Even if you don't have much merit, if a person dedicates their life to respectfully offering a small Buddha statue, the merit gained is truly rare and precious. As I mentioned yesterday, my only dream when I was young was that if I had money in the future, I would definitely acquire a very precious Buddha statue. I have always thought this way and told many people about it. That was truly my wish at the time, that if I ever had the means, I would definitely acquire a pure or exquisite Buddha statue. That was a dream from my childhood, and it remains the same even today. Beyond things like Buddha statues and temples, there really isn't much more of this kind of merit. In fact, the most meaningful thing in our lives is to accumulate merit and virtue, especially by building these kinds of places of practice. Many people both at home and abroad still have the capability and the devotion to do this. When we have this devotion, we must realize that life is impermanent. The wealth we hold in our hands now may not be with us for very long. It might not be yours when you have it, and it might not be yours when you don't. That is why it is so important to accumulate virtue while you possess it. Otherwise, for most people in the world, their wealth is of no real use to them. Especially for the wealthy, they are often just merely temporary custodians of their riches. That is to say, this is about the importance of establishing schools. It means that within our own countries or in whatever environment we have influence over, we should open schools, create places of study, hire teachers, and provide them with the necessary stipends and resources. What is the purpose of all this? It is for the sake of obtaining wisdom, and for the sake of increasing it. This is how we grow our accumulation of wisdom. Now, in many places, people are offering up spaces for practice, and I am truly grateful for this. Those of us in different areas who have even a little bit of resources can offer up unused rooms or even clear out halls for everyone to practice together. I have done this in the past, and it is very important. If everyone practices together in this way, I personally believe that even if it is just for one day, the value of that is already immense. It is already enough. That is what I think. And there are other things, like establishing schools, that is also very important. Even though there are schools everywhere now, when it comes to traditional culture or anything that fosters wisdom, as discussed in the teachings on karmic retribution, including the giving of knowledge, or even creating conditions for others to attain wisdom, these are all causes for accumulating the merit of wisdom. So, when we have such aspirations, if we have the ability and the resources, it is best to act upon them ourselves. When we can take charge, we should be resolute. Responsibility is key, as everyone's power is always shifting. No one's authority is eternal, whether it is power within the family or our professional roles in a department. The status of many people is constantly changing. Therefore, when we accumulate the merit of wisdom, it is actually, as mentioned in the treatises on karmic retribution, very relevant to our real lives, and there are. We have designed some of the principles that are meaningful, especially where it speaks about caring for the sick. Seeing some of the patients we have visited recently, they are truly pitiable. When we fall ill ourselves, we may understand. When everyone is high and mighty and happy, they do not know what the suffering of others is like. Once I might lack care, once I cannot afford medical expenses, or once I have no one, only then do I know what the suffering of the world is like. So, some truths of the human world are not found in happiness. When you encounter your lowest, most difficult, and most unacceptable moments, perhaps you will think more deeply and discover some truths about life. At that time, some might pray to various gods, saints, or Buddhas, but no matter what, we must still look to the people around us and offer unconditional help. Um, benefit all beings, and everything is accomplished. This is what benefit all beings, everything is accomplished means. Everyone should remember this sentence. Some people think that Buddhists cannot do this or that. Such notions do exist. Actually, what the people in this world and this society need is to avoid creating karma, specifically to avoid creating negative karma. Whatever society needs, you can do it. Everyone must understand this, because some Buddhists and non-Buddhists alike don't quite get it, thinking that in Buddhism, you can't do this or that. In reality, that is not the case. Although there are certain precepts in Mahayana or other vehicles, those with specific, Special requirements are meant for a portion of ordained monastics. For us as human beings, as long as something benefits society, humanity, and all sentient beings, we should do it, promote goodness, engage in public welfare, and do anything that is altruistic. You see, anything that is truly beneficial to the world can be done. Everyone needs to remember this sentence. Nowadays, people who don't understand Buddhism think that we don't believe in this or that, and that it's very restrictive. But that's not really the case. Many people are just too afraid to even come in. Let me put it this way. Buddhism doesn't actually have extremely high demands. While there are high requirements, there are also lower ones. It's just like our education system. If you are a graduate student or a doctoral candidate, there are certainly high standards, but for primary schoolers or kindergarteners, you just go in, sing songs, play around, and the teacher sends you back home, which is perfectly fine. But can it be called a school? Yes, it can. Take one of our Tibetan teachers, for example. He said very proudly, "Today I became a kindergarten teacher, I'm working at a school," and he was very happy. So, we can say that the levels within Buddhism are indeed different. Don't think that if you step inside, everything is a restriction, and that you can't do this or that. It really isn't like that. You can learn, or you don't have to, but if you do learn, there is content tailored to each level. Perhaps learning will help with your physical and mental health. Worldly knowledge alone might not be enough to satisfy all those needs, which is something you can discover as you slowly explore. As for the ultimate thought, actually, whatever things you have, you can do it, just like that. Yesterday, there were thousands of people listening to the lecture, which is decent. Usually, when we have classes, the first day always has the most people. Then the last day also has a lot of people. Right now, it's just the middle day, so today might be a bit fewer, perhaps more will come tomorrow. We usually, when I taught the Mahayana ornament of the sutras for 4 years, the first day always had many registrations, and the last day also had a lot. Since we only have 3 days this time, yesterday had the most, tomorrow will have the most, and today has the fewest. But still. Wait. You. Our Weibo today has already been compressed by 2 minutes. It probably isn't their problem, it's my problem. Will. Does it mean that even beauties can offer offerings? If you generate the bodhicitta within that time of taking 7 steps, the merit is also like the void. 1. If there is. Whatever, being as wealthy as a heavenly being, don't be arrogant. Just like how it was said before, wealth is like a dream, and poverty is like falling into the realm of hungry ghosts. I have posted before, on Weibo, that when you succeed, people praise you, but you aren't necessarily that good. When you fail, people look down on you, but you aren't necessarily that bad. Actually, I feel that when we humans are as wealthy as heavenly beings, possessing status, wealth, and appearance, you shouldn't be arrogant, because arrogance has nothing to rely on. There is so much more in this world, and sometimes if you go to another world, our planet is actually very small. Plus, our human wealth and appearance are nothing to be proud of. Therefore, even if you are as wealthy as a heavenly being, like the king of wealth, or as incredible as a great worldly monarch, it is best not to be arrogant. Otherwise, many of the high-status people we see now are very arrogant, as if they think they are the best. I have seen a lot of that arrogance. Arrogant people are especially self-centered. It's like reading them right out of a book. When it comes to lessons, some people are arrogant because of their wealth, some because of their status, some because they are very attractive, and some because of their temperament. Their arrogance manifests in many ways. Then there are those of us who are like hungry ghosts, who are bullied and looked down upon by everyone, and who also suffer from poor health and various other issues. At such times, you shouldn't be too closed off, nor should you be overly fearful or miserable. In fact, that is precisely when you should be even stronger. As Buddhists, I think many practitioners encounter these twisted forms of suffering or setbacks in their careers, because so much of life today is uncertain, whether it's your relationships, your work, your family, or your health. Even if things are good today, as the 400 verses says, everything is impermanent, and we will inevitably face such times. Times of impermanence are certainly not happy and are surely painful, so if I have some mental preparation, then even the most difficult times in my life won't be such a big deal. On one hand, we need to understand what the laws of nature are, whether this body will eventually face impermanence, or whether the phenomena we rely on will also be subject to change. Everyone should be very clear about this. So these teachings are really very necessary in our daily lives. Nowadays, many people, especially many of our viewers today, are probably more concerned with our current reality. Although we talk a lot about the path to the afterlife here, for most of us who are focused on our current lives, we should actually have a very good understanding of these matters. So, for this verse, everyone should keep in mind that in life, when we are wealthy, we shouldn't be too arrogant, and when we are poor and destitute, we shouldn't be too sad. It is. Still. Is. There. We seem to have used it in previous teachings or elsewhere. The causes of death and the various conditions, often called the conditions of death, right? Actually, when practicing the Dharma, we realize that in our lives, the causes and conditions for death are very numerous. Things like car accidents or various other things, and it seems nowadays, this includes illnesses. Many doctors and experts say we are becoming younger, healthier, and living longer, but I don't really trust that. The conditions for death are actually increasing, and we never know when death will come. Just like this morning I was fine, but tomorrow could be different. Therefore, the conditions for death, for both young and old, are very numerous. Especially when we strive for health but end up causing the very conditions that lead to death. For example, recently in my small circle, the parents of several close kenpos have passed away. Sometimes, in real life, impermanence is indeed very prevalent. It is abundant, so don't think that you are eternal and unchanging. I see that many of us do not practice the contemplation of impermanence very well. This concludes the third chapter. Now the The fourth chapter begins. Begin. Nagarjuna Bodhisattva said, "King, I might say some things you don't like, but for your own sake and for the sake of all beings, from a long-term perspective, what I say today may not make you happy, but I must still offer these compassionate words, so please listen carefully." Therefore, among us Buddhists and fellow practitioners, when we hear words we don't want to hear, we shouldn't get angry immediately. Some people, when they first hear it, say, it's fine, but as they think about it later, it's the same when many families argue. At the beginning, they think it's fine, it's okay, no problem. But after a while, it's like being stabbed. At first, you don't feel anything, but later, it starts to become painful. I see many laypeople who, when they start arguing, are initially very upset. At first, they see someone and think, wow, this person is really great, they're wonderful, but then, gradually, they start to quarrel. Actually, arguing is not good at all. However, sometimes hearing harsh or unpleasant words is quite necessary for you as a practitioner. Of course, when we work together or live together for a long time, human afflictions are very common. At those times, you should still be more relaxed. Don't be too attached to things. Being too attached will only lead to more suffering for everyone. In life, being too focused on every little detail can also be very painful. Some of us are especially calculating, overly attentive, and fixated. In contrast, those who are more relaxed and don't care as much often find themselves in better circumstances. Many people today like to take health supplements and medicine, but if you lose your temper every day and have a negative mindset, no matter how much health medicine you take, it may not be effective. So, we need a good mindset. Especially as Buddhists, if we view all sentient beings as our parents and wish to guide them, it would be shameful if we couldn't even tolerate small differences or minor annoyances. Therefore, adjusting one's own mindset is the most important thing. In fact, if we can adjust our minds well, many problems actually disappear, and even if you encounter difficulties, you will still feel happy. Those who have a well-adjusted mindset can face even a very bad environment with a positive approach, and furthermore, they can help others as well. But when we are happy and healthy, we have this worry and that worry. When you are truly in pain, it's as if those worries disappear. When you are in extreme pain, your tears even run dry. Usually, you have many tears, but when you are really suffering, your tears dry up completely. So, in our lives, we need to observe ourselves. You must observe yourself, learn to observe. Wait a moment. He said that when you encounter some situations, you should often practice giving. Today, some people say that when they want to give alms now, they use WeChat Pay or something similar, because many people don't have cash when they want to donate, right? So when you give, it should be done through When appointing people or needing help, for example, a temple abbot or someone important in a company, what are the criteria for selecting such people? The first is that they must be very diligent, not lazy at all. That is the kind of person. Also, they must be clever and wise. Having wisdom is the second criterion. The third criterion is not to be wasteful. Regarding finances, they should not be greedy and should have a very strong sense of karmic causality. Then the fourth point is to be righteous and lawful. One must act according to the Dharma in everything. The fifth is not to go against the rules, that is, to act according to the law and precepts. The fifth is to not harm others. If a person is upright, they will not intentionally cause harm to anyone. These 5 points are very important. Some of us here listening today have a lot of culture and a real need for talent cultivation. However, we often choose the wrong people. If you select the wrong people, and a successful person is surrounded by unsuccessful ones who constantly give bad advice, ultimately, one's own career will not be successful. Military strategy also emphasizes this. If you are surrounded by the wrong people, those who lack wisdom, lack ability, and are even fond of challenging your ideas, then even if you are incredibly talented and your leadership is remarkable, those around you can easily bring you down, which is very dangerous. So, when we arrange for people, it's like Warren Buffett, who selects talent based on certain conditions: integrity, kindness, and loyalty. A deep sense of loyalty. He has several criteria. That is why choosing the right people is, in fact, a form of wisdom. Even how bodhisattvas select people is also. It is like this: they must be wise, diligent, and at the very least, have a truly kind heart and not be someone who harms others. Otherwise, some people turn out to be very bad, including those in positions of power. They end up harming many people because their hearts are dark, and they just intentionally stir up trouble here and there. There are many such people, and if those around you are harmful, then the situation with others goes without saying. Furthermore, there are many bad people around leaders, and these bad people are often very unreasonable toward those they work with. They are unreasonable, so one must have these 5 qualities: love, discipline, lack of greed, diligence, and wisdom. I feel that nowadays, regarding the selection of talent, many people are misusing the right people in the wrong ways. Whether it's a large country, a small enterprise, or even the small teams around us, including many leaders in our organizations, if you choose the wrong person, it is very difficult to have them removed once they are in power. When a good leader is in place, you never want to change them. You are reluctant to let them go. But if a bad leader is in place, you resent them and keep waiting for when they can be replaced. Therefore, when it comes to the people in the United States today, some are very happy, and some are not. That is what we are discussing here. So, it's about the intermediate assistants. There are many such incidents regarding our work, life, and family that are all related, right? Let's pause for a moment. Those who love to sleep in might be thinking, "Oh, when will this end? I want to sleep, I'm so tired, why isn't it over yet?" Quote. If you think that way, I have to say, I'm already being quite considerate of everyone. If you can't even listen to a 2 or 3 hour teaching, then what kind of Dharma are you listening to? If you want to go to sleep, you can just go ahead. I'm not stopping you, especially when listening online, it's quite convenient. If you don't want to listen, you can just turn off the computer right away. But here with us, it's not quite as convenient. Still, there's so much, right? Hmm. Yesterday, I took a look at our intermediate assistance materials and there are quite a lot of lecture notes. Look at how many there are. When we were organizing them at the academy, we pasted them all together. Compared to that, this is nothing, right? You can compare them yourselves. Translating these back then wasn't easy. We translated them bit by bit. It's quite good. We were really quite diligent when we were studying these back then. Now, at seems like, should I give you a blessing? Or not? Usually not. According to this line of thought, if one commits very serious negative karma, they cannot be forgiven. It's similar to the laws in some other countries around the world. After committing such a crime, one should even be shunned. In our study group or community, if someone makes a major mistake, it is best to use exclusion, that is, expulsion. Don't harbor too much hatred for them. These people are also quite pitiful, right? What does it say here? Actually, this intermediate assistance, especially our management style, specifically the management of Buddhist groups, should be very good. No. Hmm. When it mentions Mahayana Buddhism here, many people might not necessarily go directly to study or practice it. However, it is best not to abandon it, because the profound methods are not necessarily something our ordinary eyes and conceptual thoughts can immediately perceive. I posted something on Weibo a while ago, which is actually very important in Tibetan Buddhism, that is. The Buddhist scriptures state that when we encounter some profound dharma, even if you don't have a strong interest or faith in it, it is best not to slander it. You must understand that some profound intentions are inconceivable. Our own discriminating minds are limited when it comes to understanding certain phenomena or principles in practice. Therefore, regarding all the subtle and profound teachings of the Mahayana in Buddhism, we cannot necessarily grasp them with our own narrow thinking. It may not be the way we perceive it, so we should maintain a pure heart. Even if you cannot have faith, it is best not to slander it, because slandering it is not necessarily right for an individual. So it is said here, why should we treat the Mahayana this way? If you are someone who upholds your own vows and protects your own lineage, you should not hold hatred toward the Mahayana teachings. Otherwise, some university teachers today have prejudices against Buddhism, and all their students follow them. If some teachers are biased against Mahayana Buddhism, all their students learn from them and follow suit. Similarly, some of our board members or so-called leaders who have biased views on certain matters cause everyone else to follow them blindly. Because many people today follow these influential figures or leaders, we might create a lot of negative karma, and not just concerning Buddhism. When we look at others, such as Christianity, Islam, or even practices like Hinduism and Judaism, once you truly go to understand their philosophies, you will realize that every religion has its own very profound and subtle aspects. So, because of our lack of understanding, using a very narrow-minded and ignorant approach to slander or misinterpret others' viewpoints is unreasonable. Therefore, in our practice of the esoteric teachings, slandering the path is considered a violation of the Vajrayana precepts, and the reason for this is quite simple. So, in our daily lives, for things that we do not understand, we should first set them aside. Before you have truly come to understand something, it is best not to easily judge, slander, or discard it. Otherwise, when people follow your words, many others will follow suit, and in the end, everyone will create negative karma together, which is completely unnecessary. Therefore, whether regarding people or teachings, if you do not understand them, refrain from making assessments. Doing so is the best way to benefit both yourself and others. Fourth, let us all recite the Samantabhadra's vows together for the dedication of merit. Should we use the Sanskrit or Chinese text? Let's use the Chinese text since everyone knows how to recite it. Fine, let's use the Chinese version. Yes. Okay. Many.